Hey pen friends, it's Kaitlin. Welcome back to another journaling video. In today's video, I wanted to kick off a new tradition for this channel, and essentially I want to recreate a video I did last year around this time where I shared my favorite and most used stationery supplies from the year. So I thought, as I was looking back at my channel, I saw the video and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be fun if we did this every year and, compare and contrast what has changed, what are the new favorites that have come in throughout the year, throughout the time we've spent journaling over the past 12 months. And it's also a great opportunity to show you some of my favorite supplies in case you are buying something for a friend and want some ideas, or maybe you just want some ideas for your own wish list for the holidays. So that is what we're gonna do today. I have about, I think 8 items on my right that I'm gonna be showing you today and talking about. So let's just get started and jump into the first one. I've chosen this item first because if I had to, at gunpoint tell you which item was my top favorite, it would probably be these. So first of all, a little bit of a backstory on these. Generally, I try not to impulsively buy stationery. However, sometimes when I see new releases on my email newsletters for various stationery shops in Toronto, like Paper Plus Cloth and Wonder Pens, certain items get presented that I just simply can't resist. And these chicken stamps were one of those items. As soon as I saw these in the email from Wonder Pens about their collaboration with, I believe it's pronounced Pix Dessin, and these chicken stamps were the product of that collaboration, I immediately picked them up. Normally, I try to take some time to think about a stationery purchase before I make it. I try to make it a little more logical because I do have enough supplies to begin with, but something about these chicken stamps just really awakened something in me. And it was kind of one of those fun moments where something you impulsively buy actually becomes something that you cherish and love and use a lot in your journaling practice. So these are what they look like. They have this beautiful packaging, which I just keep the stamps in because, how could you throw this out? I don't know. And if I open the packaging, you will see the stamps themselves. So it's a set of 6 stamps, all of which are chickens. And I love the variety of chicken designs here. We have, some sitting, some standing. I like how there's designs with just like the outline of the chicken, but then there's also designs like this where if you want to display the color of the ink a little more, this is like all filled with the ink pad color. So it's a little more bold if you're looking for that. But in general, just a really fantastic stamp set that I picked up this year. These are, I will show you, rubber stamps. So they look like this on the inside, or on the back side, I should say. And I've had a really good experience stamping with these. I've never found that the edges of the stamp have left an impression when I'm stamping on a piece of paper. They always come out super clean. And I'd say another bonus about these is that they are, and I don't know if they were made with this in mind, but the size of these stamps is really nice because they can pretty much fit on any page when journaling. They're a great size for an A6 page, a B6 page, a traveler's notebook, I've found. They're also the perfect size to fit in the little square leaflet or cover page of traveler's notebook inserts. But yeah, they're just a really fun way to decorate your journal page or the front of your notebook. For me also, I have like a little connection and backstory with this. I call my dogs chickens, so that's kind of like a little bit of a thing that's going on here. Also, recently I got into Stardew Valley, so now my emotional connection to chickens, as you can imagine, has significantly grown. So yeah, we really like these stamps. They're really fun and they're just a silly little decorative decorative accent that I like to include in my journal. So these are number one for sure, and I wanted to kick things off with, you know, the top item, although the rest of these items are really great too, but definitely coming in at number one are the chicken stamps. And following the chicken stamps, the rest won't be in a particular order, but top of the list is definitely these guys. Next up, after the chicken stamps, I want to draw some attention to some of my personal favorite washi tapes of all time, but also two of my favorite designs that I've discovered this year. This brand of washi tape is Japanese. They're called Yohaku, and I discovered these, I'd say, 2 or 3 years ago, and ever since then, they are, I'm looking at my stationery collection, by the way, as I say that. They are, in fact, I can confirm, 95% of my washi tape collection are this brand. So I do have a couple non-Yohaku washi tapes, but I would say the far majority are these guys. They are just really nice patterns. I don't know what it is, but I find the patterns that they make for these tapes are absolutely beautiful and, more importantly, versatile. So if you're using these like I do to tape in ephemera, tape in photos, tape in tickets and receipts, I just find that they match the receipts and add a nice little visual element that can apply to a lot of different ephemera you're pasting in, which is really nice. Another thing I really like about these tapes is they come in 2 widths. So if you look at the 2 I've brought out for you today, the left one is called their slim washi tape, I believe, and then the right one is kind of their traditional width. So I believe the thin one is about, yeah, half of the width of the regular one. And I quite like using both widths depending on the ephemera and what I'm pasting in. A lot of times I'll actually use this thick one to kind of put over the edge of the page halfway, and then I'll actually fold it over, and it acts as kind of like a nice little accent for both sides of the page, if that makes sense. And I do have quite a few colors, but I wanted to show you these two because these two have been my most used ones this year, and they are, I'll put their names in the descriptions, but they all have numbers. So this one is Y035, and then this one is L003. And I just find that these ones go the most with the photos and receipts and tickets that I tend to put in my journals, especially this one. This one I've found, you can kind of see a little bit here, not really, but compared to this roll, this guy has actually been used up a fairly good chunk, a little bit, I think. Definitely has a bit of an indent in it. So these guys are definitely some of my favorite washi tapes to use. Usually I am grabbing one of these two when I am taping something in. And oh, I'll also mention these are actual traditional washi tapes, so you're gonna kind of get that semi-adhesive quality to them. They're not like some washi tapes where like they're really sticky like actual tape, so that's also really nice. All right, next up, no one's probably surprised, is a photo printer. For those of you who might be new here, I often joke that photo printers are my love language because I do have quite a few of them, and photos are one of my favorite things to print out and put into my journals. And although I do have quite a few photo printers, I found this year that this one was the one that I personally use the most. And this printer is by Fujifilm. It's an Instax printer, and specifically it is the Instax square printer. And although all the sizes of Instax prints are nice, the square one is definitely my favorite and the one I noticed I used the most this year for a couple reasons. The first is I just really like the size of the print. I find that it is not too big, like the wide can sometimes be, but it is large enough where you have a decent area to display the photo that you're printing out and really like see the photo, if that makes sense. The second thing is that I find the square prints are the most versatile. So usually if I'm printing a square photo, 90% of the time, the photo is going to translate well and not be kind of like weirdly cut off, or not aligned properly because the square kind of, you know, it's square, so it works for portrait as well as landscape photos for the most part. So I also just like that a lot. You know, when I'm printing a photo, when I'm using my square in stacks, I don't really have to think too much about if the photo is going to work well. Whereas obviously the wide print usually only prints landscapes, and then the regular in stacks is best, I find, for portraits. Unless, of course, you don't mind rotating the film. I just have this, I guess, kind of weird thing where I like the bottom thicker white part of the border to always be on the bottom. I don't like to turn it. So for me, the square definitely wins in those regards. But yeah, in general, the Instax printers are really nice, I find, for my personal photo preferences. You're not going to be getting a crystal clear, perfect photo with these. That's definitely not the vibe that you're getting from these kinds of printers. But if you like more kind of retro, grainy, almost aged looking photos, then these are definitely probably a printer that you would enjoy. Alrighty, another gadget. So we started with photo printers, now we have moved on to label makers. And this label maker I have had, I think, for 2 years now, and this is the Dymo label embosser. I know sometimes people can have hit or miss situations with this label maker. For me, I have not had an issue so far using it. It has always printed things really well for me, and I haven't had issues with spacing. And I tend to use this quite a lot to label different notebooks. I will use this to label Stalogy notebooks, which I really like to do. The front of traveler's notebook inserts as well is another common use I tend to get out of this label maker. You can also use this to label household items like soap bottles and stuff. I personally haven't dived into that quite yet, but in general, for I believe this is like a $20 label embosser, it just adds a really nice quality when you're labeling your inserts or your notebooks, and I just think it looks really cool. So this guy was definitely used a lot this year as well, and I'll definitely continue to use this guy for labeling my notebooks in the future as well. All right, we are officially done with the gadgets, and we're moving back into the more, I guess, traditional stationery items. Moving on to our stamp section of the video. These are the only stamps that I've included in this video, but they are definitely the best stamps I have personally ever used, and these are the Sandbee Endless stamps in the large number set. So these stamps, I distinctly remember when I bought them, they were incredibly expensive for a stamp set, and while it was kind of a bit surprising how much they cost, I will say these are the kind of stamps that you will buy and then you will never probably need another set of number stamps ever again. The stamp image on these is really clear. I have never had a weird kind of translation when I'm stamping this on anything. The image is always very clear and very crisp, which is really nice. And more than that, the actual nice thing that I love the most about these is the stamps have this, if I bring it closer, this groove here, where one side has a groove going in that's cut out and the other side has a groove coming out. And what this does is when you are stamping number sequences or letter sequences, they also have alphabet stamps. I just personally don't have them yet. I'm actually quite tempted to pick up a pair of alphabet stamps, but anyway, essentially what you can do, if I bring this up close, is you can take the stamps and you take one side with the groove and one side with the part sticking out, and they actually click together. So then when I'm stamping, I can just put it in the ink and then stamp it on the page, and I don't have to worry about spacing the stamps out properly or one translating and the other not. It just makes the whole process so much easier, and it's much easier stamping out number sequences, which I tend to do a lot because I'll use these to stamp out the months of the year in my journals. And you can also, I don't do this personally, but you could put like a bunch of numbers together. I think you could do as many as you want, but Usually I'm only doing 2, quite honestly. And then when you want to remove them, they just kind of detach like this. You can like wiggle them out and put them back. And they come in a really convenient case, which is nice as well, because then it's easy to store them as so. So yeah, very expensive stamps, but the kind of stamp I would recommend if you're ever thinking of buying stamps. These ones will last you a long time. They're great quality, and you know, it's not going to be a situation where you buy stamps and they kind of die on you a couple months later. So these ones are a little bit of a splurge, but very, very nice and great to use as well. All right, we did stamps. Now on to stamp inks. This year I discovered these inks, which are called the Sachihara ink pads. Previously I'd used stamp inks like the Versa Magic quite a lot, but I found that I was kind of struggling with those with longevity, and the ink pads would often dry up and I'd have to buy new ones every couple of months, which I didn't really love. So I ended up buying these ones this year, and I have found that these have been extremely good. The ink pad itself is really nice. It looks like this, and it's kind of firm, unlike some of the more spongy ink pads that you might have used. So it actually makes it a lot easier to ink up your stamp because you're not having to like really press it into the ink pad. I find that on Stalogy paper, these don't bleed. On Traveler's Notebooks, they also don't bleed. So I think on like super thin Tomoe River paper, there might be a bit of a risk, but overall I find that these are pretty good on most paper types. And I really like these particular colors. This one is called Chestnut and this one is called Sand, and usually when I'm stamping, it's one of these two. And I don't know, what else can I say about these stamp pads? Really great. 10 out of 10. Enjoyed using these this year, and yes, they also stack like this, which is kind of nice when it comes to storing them. All right, so for the last ones, I'm gonna do them both together, but these are both items from the spiral coiled notebook line from Traveler's Company. And if you're like me, you might be more familiar generally with the inserts and the notebooks by Traveler's Company, but they do also have these spiral notebooks that they carry in addition to their kind of regular lineup of booklets and leather covers. And the ones that I have used this year and loved a lot have been the B6 window file, which is this notebook right here, and the B6 photo file, which looks like this. This is a new one that I haven't taken out of the packaging. And I like to use both of these when I am traveling and travel journaling. Actually, if I show you the kind of order I use these, I use this one, which is the window file, which looks like this on the inside. It has a bunch of clear kind of window files that open up like this. And this I have found has been the perfect thing to bring on trips to collect different ephemera and tickets and passport bits and brochures, because what you can do is you can use these different window folders to either separate your tickets and ephemera by day or maybe by location, and it provides a really nice way to organize your ephemera as you are traveling without having to put much thought or effort into it. And it just, I've found, makes it a lot easier to process everything once you've come back from the trip, because you're not having to look at something and think about when you got this thing and what day it was and where you were. It's all kind of already organized for you, which is really nice. And after I use this guy on the trip, he goes away and this B6 photo file comes in. And unlike the window file, this has pieces of paper with kind of this, I'll take one out, plastic covering on 3/4 of the sheet. And as the title might suggest, this is kind of Traveler's Company's photo album, which you can use to put photos from your trip into. And I like to use it for this purpose. I like to buy one of these for each of my trips, and then I just fill it with photos, and then I'll usually add like a label from my embosser on the front and a sticker maybe, and it's just a really nice way to capture the trip, and I really like the look and design of these photo files as well. So yeah, these hold all of my travel memories outside of course, any journal entries I might do, but I do find that for the people in our lives that aren't into journaling, having a dedicated photo album for the trip is a really nice thing to be able to bring out, and when someone comes over and they want to know how your trip was, you can just bring this guy out and have them flip through it, and it's a really nice kind of activity and way to share the trip with them in a very easily digestible way. You know, at least I'm not generally giving people my journal to look at when they ask how the trip is, but giving them a book full of photos so they can kind of get a high-level overview of what you did and where you were usually is a little more enjoyable and a lot more fun to share with that person. So that is the photo file, and this is the window file, both in B6 size. All right, and the 2 items from Traveler's Company mark the end of the favorites that I wanted to show you today. So we have a pretty lean lineup this year, 8 items. I wanted to keep it pretty condensed so we could focus on the true all-stars of the year, shall we say. But yeah, those were the items that I got a lot of use out and a lot of enjoyment out of this year. Let me know below what items were your favorite this year. I'm curious to know, because everyone has different things that they enjoy and that they use, and who knows, maybe one of you will inspire me to pick something up that will be on the favorites next year. We will see. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope maybe you discovered some new things that you hadn't seen before. Besides that, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, everybody.